The text came in at 3:32 p.m. It wasn't a particularly important time, and I was in the middle of working through a massive project, so I almost missed it. But as I glanced at my phone, my stomach sank. It was from Mara. "We need to talk. Don't be angry. Just meet me at the coffee shop in 45 minutes. I'm already here." I stared at the message for a long time. At first, I didn't know what to make of it. There was no context, no explanation. Just a simple, cryptic request. Mara wasn't the type to leave texts like that, especially not when things were normal between us. Which, to be honest, they hadn't been for a while. We had gotten into a rhythm in the last few months, almost like we were two separate people, just coexisting in the same space. Conversations felt like formalities. Intimacy had become a thing of the past, and even the way we looked at each other had shifted. It wasn't outright tension, but there was this unspoken distance that kept growing. I grabbed my keys, not sure what to expect. My thoughts were racing. Was this about work? Was she upset about something that had happened, something I hadn't noticed? I tried to prepare myself for whatever was coming, but in the back of my mind, I had a nagging feeling that this was different. This was important. When I walked into the coffee shop, I saw her immediately. She was sitting at a small table by the window, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup. She looked calm, maybe a little too calm. There was no sign of distress in her posture, but I could see the slight unease in her eyes when she saw me walk in. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal, like everything was fine. I sat down across from her, my heart pounding slightly in my chest. "What's going on? You're scaring me a little." She didn't smile. Instead, she took a deep breath, looked me square in the eye, and said, "Noah, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to listen to me before you say anything." I nodded, confused but trying to stay calm. "I know this is going to sound strange," she started, her voice trembling slightly, "but I need to do something for myself. It's been on my mind for a while, and I've thought it through. I need to ask for your permission, but I need you to understand something first. This isn't about us, or about you. It's about me." My pulse quickened. This was definitely not what I expected. "Okay," I said slowly. "What do you mean?" "I want to feel someone else. Physically, emotionally. I need to see what it's like with another man." I froze. The words didn't immediately register in my mind. It felt like my brain was trying to make sense of the sentence, but couldn't quite compute the meaning. "Mara, what are you talking about?" I finally managed to say, my voice lower than I intended. "You want to sleep with someone else?" She nodded. "Yes. I've been thinking about it for months, and I need to do this. I need to see if it's something I truly want, something that will help me feel alive again, or if I'm just missing something in myself. I don't know what's been going on with me lately, but I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when I feel like I'm suffocating." I felt my stomach churn. Every part of me wanted to reject this, to tell her it was insane, to ask how she could even ask such a thing. But I couldn't move, couldn't find the words. "I know it sounds crazy," she continued, her voice cracking slightly, "but this isn't about you. It's about me. I don't want to leave you. I don't want to break us. But I need this for my own peace of mind, Noah. I need to feel something different." I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. What was she saying? How could she possibly think that this was okay? I loved her, deeply, truly. And yet, here she was, telling me she wanted to be with someone else, and asking me for permission. "I don't know if I can give you that permission," I said finally, though my voice was barely a whisper. "How do I know you'll come back? How do I know this won't destroy everything?" Her eyes softened. "I don't know, Noah. I can't guarantee anything. But I promise you, if I don't like it, if I don't feel what I'm looking for, I will come back to you. I won't leave you forever, but I need to know that I've tried." I sat back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. There was a part of me that wanted to scream, to tell her that I couldn't live with this, that it would tear me apart. But there was also a part of me that felt hollow. What if she was right? What if there was something she needed to understand about herself that I couldn't give her? "Do you even know what you're asking?" I said, my voice cracking. "You're asking me to let you sleep with someone else. To let you have a piece of your life that's mine, that's ours. And I'm supposed to just be okay with it?" She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, "I need this, Noah. I need to know if I can feel alive again, even if it means taking this risk. I know it's selfish. I know it's hard. But I need you to trust me. Trust that if it doesn't work, if I don't feel what I need to feel, I will come back to you." The words felt like they were stabbing me in the chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My thoughts were spinning in circles, the world around me blurring. I wanted to run away, to scream, to tell her it was insane. But instead, I sat there, frozen, my heart beating in my throat. "I need time to think about this," I said quietly, barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can give you what you want." Mara nodded, her face falling as if she had already anticipated my reaction. "I understand. Take all the time you need. But please, think about it. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for a chance to find out if I can be whole again." And with that, she stood up, leaving me sitting there alone, surrounded by the weight of her request. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I was left to process the words she had just spoken, the words that would change everything. I didn't know how long I sat there after she left. The soft hum of the coffee shop around me, the clinking of cups, and the low murmur of conversation felt like it was happening in another universe, one that was light years away from where I was. The words Mara had just said still echoed in my mind, over and over again. I felt like I was trapped in a dream, a nightmare, where everything that I thought was real, everything I knew, was crumbling away in front of me. I tried to focus on something, anything else. I reached for my cup of coffee, but it had long gone cold. I didn't even remember taking a sip when I sat down. My hand trembled slightly as I set the cup back on the table, my mind spinning. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't understand how my wife, my partner, the person I had shared my life with, could ask me for something like this. But as I sat there in the uncomfortable silence of the coffee shop, I realized I had no idea what was happening with Mara. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had just dropped a bombshell on me. She wanted to sleep with someone else. She needed to feel alive again. I couldn't process it. I couldn't make sense of it. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the screen without really looking at anything. But there was one text that caught my eye. It was from my best friend, Lucas. We'd known each other since high school, and although he lived a couple of hours away now, we still talked regularly. The message was simple, but it felt like the universe had dropped it in my lap for a reason. "Hey, you okay? Haven't heard from you in a while. Want to talk?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds, the words swimming in front of my eyes. Maybe I should talk to him. Maybe I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. I felt like I was on the verge of a breakdown, and I had no one to turn to. I hesitated before typing back. "I don't even know what to say right now. Can we talk tonight? I really need to get this off my chest." The reply came almost instantly. "Of course. I'll be at the bar at 7. You can find me there." I put my phone away and stood up, feeling a strange weight in my chest. The decision to meet Lucas didn't come easily. I wasn't sure what I expected from him. I wasn't even sure I could put into words what had happened, what Mara had just asked me. How could I explain it? How could I make him understand? But I had no choice. I couldn't process this alone. I walked out of the coffee shop and into the cold evening air, my thoughts racing. The streets felt unfamiliar, like I was walking through a place that was no longer mine. The sky had darkened, and the flickering streetlights only seemed to highlight how empty everything felt. Everything about tonight felt wrong. It felt like the beginning of the end, and I had no idea how to stop it. When I arrived at the bar, Lucas was already sitting at our usual booth. He waved me over as I approached, his face lighting up when he saw me. But as soon as I sat down, I could tell something was off. I had always been able to talk to Lucas about anything, but tonight, I didn't even know where to start. "You look like hell, man," Lucas said, his voice laced with concern. "What's going on? Talk to me." I forced a smile, trying to pretend like everything was fine, but it didn't work. Not with him. He knew me too well. He could see right through the act. I don't even know where to begin," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He sat up straighter, the look in his eyes shifting from concern to something else, something more intense. "Noah, what's going on? Is it Mara?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's Mara." I took a deep breath and started to explain as best as I could. I told him about the message she sent me, the request she made. I told him that she wanted to be with someone else. I told him everything, about how she needed to feel alive again, how it wasn't about me or our relationship, but about something inside her that she was missing. Lucas listened quietly, his eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, there was a long silence between us. I couldn't read his expression. Finally, he spoke. "Man, I don't know what to say. That's a lot to take in. But Look, I know you. I know you love her. I know you've always been there for her. But this is different, Noah. This isn't something you can just brush off. This is a choice she's making. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. I don't know what to do. She wants me to give her permission to let her do this. And I don't know if I can. Lucas took a deep breath, then leaned back in his seat. You have to decide, man. You're not in control of her choices, but you can control your own. If this is something you can't handle, then maybe you need to think about whether or not this relationship is what you want anymore. I felt a wave of anger and frustration rise up in me. How can you say that? I love her. She's my wife. How can I just let her go off and do this? I'm not saying you let her go, Lucas replied, his voice gentle but firm. I'm saying you need to be honest with yourself. You can't keep sacrificing your own happiness for hers. If this is something that's tearing you apart, then it's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. I felt like I was drowning. The words Lucas was saying made sense, but they also felt impossible. Could I really say no? Could I really turn my back on Mara, the woman I had loved for so long? Could I really ask her to choose between me and whatever she was searching for? I don't know if I can do that, I muttered, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can walk away from her. Lucas looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes, Noah, loving someone means letting them go, even if it hurts. The words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know if I was ready to face that kind of truth, but somewhere deep down, I knew it was something I had to consider. The night stretched on, and I felt like I was caught in a storm, unsure of where it would take me. But one thing was clear, my life and my marriage were about to change in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. The conversation with Lucas lingered in my mind long after I left the bar. The night was cold, and the streets seemed to stretch endlessly in front of me. I could feel the weight of his words pressing down on me. The idea that maybe I should let Mara go, to choose myself over this marriage that suddenly felt so fragile. But it wasn't that simple. It couldn't be. I spent the next few days in a haze. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't eat properly, couldn't sleep without the gnawing feeling of uncertainty. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could think about was Mara's request. Every time I saw her, I felt this disconnection, this palpable distance between us that hadn't been there before. It was like a slow burn, a crack in the foundation of everything I thought we were. And I hated it. But I couldn't just walk away from her, from us. Mara had been my world for so long. We had built a life together, shared dreams, and memories that I couldn't just discard because of one thing she said. Even if that one thing was shattering everything. I had to talk to her. I had to know why. It wasn't until Wednesday night, 3 days after our last conversation, that I finally gathered the courage to bring it up. I waited until after dinner, when the dishes were cleaned and we were sitting on the couch, the silence between us thick. It was then that I turned to her, my voice quieter than I expected. Mara, we need to talk. About what you asked me. She didn't look surprised. There was a strange calmness in her eyes, like she'd been waiting for me to bring it up. I know, she said softly. I know it's a lot to ask, but I need you to understand something. I'm listening, I replied, my voice tight, my hands gripping the armrest of the couch. I needed her to explain herself, to tell me why. But I didn't know if I was ready for the answer. Mara took a deep breath, her gaze turning away from me, as though searching for the right words. It's not about not loving you. It's not about anything you've done. It's about me, Noah. I feel like I've been losing parts of myself, like I'm not the person I was when we met. And I can't live the rest of my life not knowing what it's like to feel different, to experience something new. I don't want to hurt you, but I need to feel alive again. And if I don't do this now, I'll always wonder what it would have been like. Her words hung in the air like a cloud, heavy and suffocating. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I also saw something else, something that terrified me. This wasn't just a passing thought for her. This wasn't a whim. She had already made up her mind. I shook my head, my throat closing up. I don't understand, I muttered. Why couldn't you talk to me about it? Why didn't you come to me before? Why do you think sleeping with someone else will solve this? Mara's eyes flickered with something close to guilt, but she didn't back down. I didn't know how to bring it up. I didn't want you to feel like I was rejecting you. I didn't want to hurt you. But I can't keep living like this, Noah. I need to do something for myself. This isn't about you. It's about me finding out who I am again. I felt a lump form in my throat, the weight of her words crashing into me like a freight train. It wasn't about me. She had already decided this for herself. She had already chosen what she thought she needed, even if it meant tearing apart everything we had built together. "I don't know if I can do this," I said quietly, the words barely escaping my lips. "I don't know if I can just stand by and watch you do this." Mara reached out, placing a hand gently on mine, her touch warm but distant. "I'm not asking you to be okay with it. I'm asking for your trust. And if you can't give me that, if you can't understand why I need this, I won't push you. I'll walk away from it. But I need you to know, Noah, this is the one thing I can't ignore anymore." I didn't know how long we sat there in silence. I didn't know if I was waiting for something to change, for the answer to suddenly come to me. But nothing did. I was stuck, frozen in place, unable to move forward, unable to retreat. The gravity of her words held me in place like a stone, and I couldn't find a way to break free. "I need to think about it," I said, my voice breaking under the pressure. "I don't know if I can just let you do this. I don't know if I can live with it." Mara nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of understanding and sadness. "Take all the time you need, Noah. I'm not going anywhere. I just wanted you to know, this is something I need for myself. And if you can't support me in this, I'll have to figure out what that means for us." I felt the weight of her words settle in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand that she take it back, to tell her that I couldn't accept this. But I couldn't, because in a small corner of my mind, a voice was whispering that maybe, just maybe, she was right. Maybe she didn't need this. Maybe this was something that would help her find herself again. But as I looked at her, as I saw the sadness and the resolve in her eyes, I realized something. This wasn't just a question about Mara anymore. It was a question about me. What was I willing to sacrifice for her? What was I willing to lose? And more importantly, could I live with myself if I said yes? Could I live with the idea of her with someone else? The decision was mine, and the weight of it threatened to break me. I didn't know what the right answer was, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever I decided, nothing would ever be the same again. I couldn't sleep that night. The darkness in the room seemed to press in on me, heavier than the weight of Mara's request. I tossed and turned in bed, the sheets tangled around my body. But no matter how I tried to relax, the thoughts kept coming. Was I being selfish for not understanding? Or was I fooling myself, holding on to something that was already slipping away? The silence between Mara and I was suffocating. We hadn't spoken since that night. I felt like I was living in a strange limbo, a place where everything I knew was being questioned. Was love really enough to keep us together? Or had we reached a point where something deeper, something more profound, was required to fix whatever was broken between us? Mara had asked me to trust her, and I wanted to. I really did. But the idea of her being with someone else, it felt like a jagged piece of glass, cutting at me from the inside out. I wanted to scream, to run far away from this, but the truth was, there was no escaping it. I had to make a choice. The next morning, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I barely recognized the man staring back at me. Who was I now? Was I the man who could let his wife explore herself with someone else? Was I the kind of man who could stay silent, even as everything inside of him screamed to fight back? Or was I the man who would stand up for himself, for his own sanity, and say no? I tried to convince myself that everything would be okay, that Mara and I could work through this. But deep down, I knew there were no guarantees. I couldn't predict what would happen after this, and that terrified me. When I finally went downstairs, Mara was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. I could feel the tension between us, thick and heavy in the air. Neither of us had spoken in the past few days, but the silence spoke volumes. "Morning," she said softly, but there was no warmth in her voice. It was the same detached tone she had used since our conversation. I couldn't tell if she was trying to give me space or if she was already preparing herself for whatever was coming next. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile. But it felt fake, hollow, as if we were both playing parts in a story that had already gone off the rails. I walked over to the counter and poured myself a cup of coffee, my mind racing. The decision that I had to make was weighing on me more than anything else. I couldn't pretend anymore that everything was fine. This was real. This was happening. Mara's voice broke the silence again. "Noah, I need to know what you're thinking. I can't keep living in this uncertainty. I can't keep waiting for you to figure out what you want." I froze, the coffee cup halfway to my lips. I could feel the anxiety creeping up my spine. This was it. This was the moment I had been dreading. I could either say yes, support her in this exploration of herself, or I could refuse and watch everything I had with her unravel. Either way, it would change everything. I put the cup down, my hands trembling slightly. I've been thinking about it a lot, Mara. I've been trying to understand it, but I can't pretend I'm okay with it. I can't just let you do this. I love you, and I don't think I could live with myself if I agreed to this. Her face fell, the quiet disappointment in her eyes cutting deeper than I had expected. She didn't say anything for a long time, but I could see the resignation in her posture. She had already made peace with this decision in her mind, I realized. But I hadn't. I get it, Mara finally said, her voice barely a whisper. I know this isn't something you can just accept. I thought maybe, just maybe, you could understand why I needed it. But I can't make you feel something you don't. Her words hung in the air, sharp and final. I wanted to say more, to tell her I was scared, that I didn't know what was going to happen next. But all I could do was stare at her, feeling the distance between us stretch even further. I just don't know who I am anymore, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I don't know what's missing, and I need to find out. I need to know if I can feel alive again. But I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when I feel like I'm falling apart inside. I stood there in silence, watching her. Part of me wanted to reach out, to take her hand, to tell her everything would be okay. But the other part of me, the part that had spent the last few days stewing over her request, was saying no. It was too much. I couldn't just accept this. I couldn't let her walk away from me, even if it was for her own sake. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I felt like we were at a crossroads, but no matter which direction I chose, I would lose something. There was no easy way out of this, no simple answer. Finally, Mara stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I understand, Noah. I know you can't do this. I thought you could, but I see now that I was wrong. Maybe we both need to figure out what's next. I felt the sting of her words, but there was nothing I could do to take them back. I had made my choice. But now, I was left with the consequences. The quiet finality of her departure hung over me like a storm cloud, threatening to break at any moment. I'm not giving up on us, I said, almost desperate for her to understand. But I can't give you what you want, Mara. Not like this. Not without losing myself in the process. Her face softened, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of the woman I had loved. I know, I didn't want to hurt you, Noah, but I can't live this way. And maybe, just maybe, neither of us can. With that, she turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the decision I had made, and the crushing realization that it might have been the wrong one. But as the silence settled around me, one thing became painfully clear. Mara had already made her choice. And I had no idea what mine was going to cost. The days that followed felt like they were moving in slow motion. Time itself seemed to stretch, becoming painfully drawn out. I went through the motions of daily life, work, meals, the occasional conversation with Mara, but everything felt like it had been filtered through some kind of fog. We spoke less and less, and when we did, it was only about the most mundane, superficial things. There was no spark between us anymore, no easy affection or familiar laughter. It was as though the foundation of our relationship had cracked beneath us, and we were both trying to navigate around the pieces, hoping not to get cut. I'd wake up every morning to the same quiet emptiness. Mara would already be up, usually sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring off into space. She wasn't angry, but she wasn't happy either. She wasn't anything. She had become a ghost in our home, and I didn't know how to reach her anymore. The worst part was that I could see it in her eyes, the same resignation I had felt during our last conversation. We were both waiting for something to give, for something to change. But neither of us knew how to make that happen. One night, I couldn't stand the silence any longer. I had to know where we stood. I had to know if we were even still in this together. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, though I wasn't really watching it. Mara had gone out to run errands, but she was supposed to be back soon. The house felt unusually still, the kind of stillness that only comes when something major is about to happen. And I knew, deep down, that tonight would be the night that changed everything. The door opened a few minutes later, and I turned to see her standing in the hallway, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My stomach dropped as I took in the sight of her. There was something different in her posture, something unfamiliar, like she had already made up her mind. Mara, I asked cautiously, standing up from the couch. What's going on? Where are you going? She stood there for a moment, looking at me, her face hard to read. Then, with a quiet sigh, she answered, I think I need some time away. I need to figure things out. It's not working, Noah. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been expecting them, but hearing them out loud made it feel so much more real. So final. I took a step forward, my mind racing. Time away? You're leaving? For good? Mara didn't answer immediately. She stood there, her eyes searching mine as if looking for something she couldn't quite find. Finally, she spoke, her voice tinged with sadness. I don't know. I really don't. But I can't keep living like this, Noah. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when I don't know who I am anymore. I thought I could find the answers here, with you, but I was wrong. I felt the tears start to sting my eyes, and I wiped them away quickly, angry at myself for letting this happen. But I couldn't help it. She was slipping away from me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Please, Mara, don't do this. We can work through it. We can talk, figure this out together. She shook her head slowly, the sadness in her eyes deepening. I don't think we can anymore. I think we've both changed, and maybe we can't go back to what we were. I know you're hurting. I know this isn't easy, but I need to do this for myself. I need to find who I am outside of this marriage, outside of all the expectations I've built for myself. I stood frozen, unsure of what to say. My thoughts were jumbled, torn between my desire to hold on to her and my own understanding of what she was saying. She was right, in a way. We had changed, and I didn't know if we could go back to what we were. But the thought of letting her go, it felt like a part of me was being ripped out. I had tried so hard to be the man she needed, but maybe it wasn't enough. I don't know if I can let you go, Mara, I said, my voice shaky. I don't know if I can just walk away from everything we've built. I don't want to make you feel like you have to let go, she said softly, her voice trembling now. But I need you to understand that this isn't something I can undo. I need to be alone, to figure things out. And I can't do that if I'm still here, still holding on to something that isn't working anymore. She walked toward me then, her movements slow, deliberate. For a moment, I thought she was going to reach out and hold me, but she didn't. Instead, she stopped just short of me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I love you, Noah, she whispered. But I need to love myself again, too. I need to find out who I am without you, without us. The finality of her words hit me like a tidal wave. I wanted to shout, to demand that she stay, but I couldn't. I didn't know how to hold on to someone who didn't want to be held anymore. Mara paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. I don't know what's going to happen when I come back, if I come back. But I have to do this for me. Please try to understand. With that, she left. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I stood there in the empty hallway, feeling like the weight of the world had just descended on my shoulders. It was over. Not in a way I ever expected, not in a way I was ready for, but it was over. Mara had left, and there was nothing I could do to change her mind. I had tried to hold on, to convince her that we could make it work, but in the end, it wasn't enough. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, unable to move, unable to think. My entire world was suddenly shattered, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. I woke up the next morning to an emptiness I had never felt before. The house was silent, eerily so, and for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. I couldn't even remember the last time I had gotten a decent night's sleep. Since Mara left, my mind had been racing, the uncertainty eating away at me from the inside. But today, everything felt different. The absence of her presence in the house was like a heavy fog hanging over me. I had no idea how to move forward, or even what I was supposed to do next. I tried to focus on work, tried to do something to distract myself from the gnawing emptiness, but it was impossible. Everything I did reminded me of her coffee cup on the counter, her shoes by the door, the way she used to leave little notes around the house. It all felt like a cruel reminder that everything was slipping through my fingers. I had always been someone who could handle change, someone who could adapt. But this wasn't just change. This was something that felt like the foundation of my life was being torn apart, piece by piece. And no matter how much I tried to convince myself I was strong enough to handle it, I wasn't. I wasn't sure who I was without her anymore. The phone rang around noon, interrupting my thoughts. It was a private number, and for a moment, I thought about ignoring it. But something told me to answer. Maybe I was hoping for some clarity, some sign that everything wasn't as bad as it seemed. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse, as if I hadn't spoken in days. There was a pause on the other end, and then a familiar voice, soft, almost fragile, spoke. "Noah, it's me, Mara." My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard her voice in days, and hearing it now sent a shiver down my spine. I wasn't sure whether to feel relief, anger, or a mix of both. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on?" I'm not sure how to explain this," she began, her words faltering. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I'm coming back. I've been staying with a friend, and I need to talk to you." A flood of emotions rushed through me. Relief was the first to hit me. Mara was coming back. But then came doubt. What did this mean? Why had she decided to come back? Was she really ready to try again? Or was this just another phase she was going through? "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice tight, unsure if I was even asking the right question. "I don't know," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "But I need to see you. I need to talk to you face to face. I've thought about everything we've been through, and I'm still so unsure of everything. But I can't keep running away from it." I paused for a moment, processing her words. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her how much this had hurt me. But another part of me wanted to welcome her back, to fix things, to find a way to heal. I didn't know what to say. Everything inside me screamed for answers, for resolution, but I knew that wasn't something Mara could give me in a single conversation. "I'll be here," I said finally. "Whenever you're ready." The call ended, and I stood there for a few moments, holding the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of what was coming. She was coming back, but why? Why after everything? Could she really be ready to face what she had done? Or was this just another temporary decision, a fleeting moment of doubt before she changed her mind again? The hours dragged by. Every second seemed to stretch longer than the last, the anticipation building up like pressure in my chest. I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mara had sounded on the phone. She didn't seem sure of herself, but there was something in her voice that told me she was searching for something. Searching for me, or searching for herself. Finally, the doorbell rang, pulling me out of my spiraling thoughts. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked to the door. When I opened it, there she was, Mara. She looked different, but not in any drastic way. Her hair was a little longer, a little more disheveled, and there were faint shadows under her eyes. But it was the sadness in her face that caught me the most. She was still the woman I had loved, but she was someone I didn't recognize anymore. "Mara," I whispered, almost afraid to say anything more. She looked at me with those tired eyes, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. It was like we were both waiting for the other to break the silence, to say the words that would somehow make everything right again. But neither of us had the answers. "I don't know where to start," she said quietly, stepping into the house, her gaze never leaving me. "I've been thinking about everything, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I don't know if I can fix what I've done, but I don't want to walk away from you. Not like this." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. The words I wanted to say were stuck in my throat. I wanted to ask her why she had left, why she had put me through all of this, but I also knew that right now, we couldn't move forward by pointing fingers. We needed to talk, really talk, about what we wanted, about what we needed. But it was hard to find those words. It was hard to tell her that I had been broken by her actions, that I was still standing here, trying to figure out who I was without her, without us. "I don't know if I can just forgive you," I said softly, my voice breaking. "You asked for so much, Mara, and I tried to understand. I really did. But it hurt me in ways I didn't think I could feel." She nodded slowly, her eyes full of regret. "I know, and I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost. I thought I could find myself by running away from everything we had. But I was wrong." We stood there in the quiet of the house, both of us unsure of what to do next. Everything felt uncertain, like we were both standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if we should jump or find a way back to solid ground. "I don't know if we can fix this," I said, the truth of it stinging. "But I'm willing to try, if you are. But we can't keep going in circles, Mara. We have to be honest with each other about everything. No more running." She nodded again, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know. I need you to know that I'm not running anymore. I'm here. and I want to figure this out, if you'll let me." And just like that, with a simple statement, a small flicker of hope sparked in my chest. Maybe it wasn't over. Maybe we could find a way back to each other, if we both tried. The days that followed felt like a delicate balance between hope and despair. Mara had come back, and though we hadn't officially mended things, the mere presence of her in the house was enough to stir a complex storm of emotions inside me. There was so much we needed to talk about, so much that had been left unsaid for far too long, but every time I tried to start that conversation, a part of me held back. I was afraid of the truth, afraid of what would happen if we finally laid everything out in the open. But as the days wore on, it became clear that the time for avoiding the inevitable was over. We couldn't keep living like this. We couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when we both knew it wasn't. So, one evening, after another quiet dinner that felt more like an awkward meeting than a shared meal, I sat down across from Mara in the living room. "Mara," I began, my voice steady but filled with the weight of what was to come. "We need to talk. We've been dancing around this for days, and it's not helping either of us. I need to know what you want, and I need to know where we stand." She looked at me, her eyes tired but determined, as if she had been expecting this moment. "I know," she said softly, but there was a sharpness to her tone now. "I know it's been hard. I know we haven't been able to figure things out. But Noah, I need to be honest with you about something. I can't keep pretending I don't feel conflicted." I felt my pulse quicken. Her words were hitting too close to home. We had spent the last few days coexisting, both of us unsure of how to move forward. But this felt like the truth was finally starting to break through the surface. And I was scared of what that truth might reveal. "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "What exactly are you conflicted about?" Mara shifted in her seat, and for a moment, she looked away, as though she couldn't bring herself to meet my eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost fragile. "I thought I needed to be with someone else. I thought I needed to explore something outside of our relationship to figure out who I was. But the truth is, I don't know if I can ever go back to that. I don't know if I can fully trust myself or us again." The weight of her words hit me harder than I had expected. It felt like I had been holding my breath for days, waiting for some sign that we could get through this. And now that she was finally admitting how deeply conflicted she was, I wasn't sure if it made things better or worse. "You don't know if you can trust us again?" I repeated, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Mara, you're the one who wanted this. You asked me for permission to be with someone else, and now you're telling me that you don't know if you can trust what we had?" She nodded slowly, her eyes brimming with tears that she hadn't let fall yet. "I know. I didn't think it would be this hard. I thought that once I did it, once I felt what I thought I was missing, it would be clear. But it wasn't. It didn't fix anything. It just made everything worse. I thought I could find myself by stepping outside of our marriage, but all I found was emptiness. And now I don't know where we go from here." The anger inside me flared, but I swallowed it down, trying to keep control. "So, you just went out there and did whatever you wanted without even thinking about how it would affect me? Without thinking about us?" She flinched at my words, and for a moment, I thought she might say something in her defense, but instead, she just looked at me, and I saw the remorse in her eyes. "I didn't think it through. I didn't think about you the way I should have. And I'm sorry. I can't take it back, and I can't undo the hurt I've caused, but I can try to make things right. I can't promise that we'll be the same again, but I want to try." I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions that surged through me. I wanted to scream, to tell her how much she had broken me, how her request had left scars deeper than I thought I could bear. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. The pain felt so raw, so deep, that even the thought of expressing it seemed impossible. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said quietly, my voice heavy with the truth. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. What you asked of me, it's not something I can just forget." Mara didn't try to defend herself, didn't offer any more apologies. She just sat there, her face pale, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The silence between us stretched, a painful reminder of everything that had changed. We had both been holding on to the hope that we could fix this, but the reality was that things would never be the same. "I know," she whispered, "and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't expect things to go back to the way they were. But I want to try, Noah. I want to show you that I can be the person you need. I can't erase the past, but I can work toward a future if you're willing to give me that chance. I closed my eyes, the exhaustion of everything weighing down on me. I had never imagined that my life would come to this, a point where I had to choose between the love of my life and my own sense of self-respect. But here we were, standing at the crossroads, and I knew that whatever decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. I don't know if I'm strong enough to try again, I admitted, the words feeling like a confession. I don't know if I can rebuild this. Mara looked at me then, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. We don't have to rebuild it all at once. We can start small. But please, Noah, don't give up on us just yet. Don't let one mistake define everything we had. The silence that followed her words felt like an eternity. I wasn't sure if I was ready to take that step again, if I could look at her without the pain of what had happened creeping into every moment. But I couldn't deny the part of me that still loved her, the part of me that still wanted to believe in us, even after everything that had transpired. The decision wasn't clear. The path ahead wasn't simple. But one thing was certain, this wasn't the end. Whatever happened next, it would be a new chapter, one where we both had to face our demons, confront our mistakes, and decide if we were willing to fight for each other. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure where we were headed. But I knew that the journey had only just begun. The days that followed were filled with both tension and healing. It wasn't easy, nothing about this process could be. But there was something in the air now, something we hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It wasn't a perfect hope, not a grand, sweeping kind of change, but a quiet, small hope that we could rebuild, piece by piece, and maybe, just maybe, find our way back to each other. We started with the simplest things. Long walks around the neighborhood, side by side, not speaking much, but just existing together in the same space. There was something oddly comforting about it. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't suffocating. It felt like a soft promise that we were both here, trying. Mara had promised me that she would prove to me that she could be the woman I needed, the woman she had once been. She started opening up in ways she hadn't before. Every conversation, no matter how small, was a step forward. She began taking more responsibility for the hurt she had caused, not just with words, but with actions. She made efforts to show me that she valued me, that she valued what we had built. I, too, had to take my own steps. I had to learn how to trust again, how to let go of the anger that had consumed me. I couldn't keep holding on to the past, onto the betrayal, if I wanted to move forward. And it was hard, God, it was hard. But every time I saw Mara trying, every time she looked at me with that same soft hope in her eyes, I felt a little piece of that wall I'd built around myself begin to crack. It wasn't an instant fix. Some days, I wanted to scream, to remind her of what she had done, to tell her how much it had hurt me. But there were other days, small moments, fleeting ones, where I saw a glimmer of who we were before everything fell apart. And I clung to those moments. One evening, about a month after Mara came back, we were sitting together on the couch, both of us exhausted from a long day. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. We were just there, present, and that was enough. It felt like the silence between us had transformed into something softer, something less threatening. Do you think we can do this? I asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. Mara turned to look at me, her expression open, her eyes free of the sadness that had been there before. There was a new kind of warmth there, a new kind of understanding. I hope so, she said, her voice steady. I really do. But I know it's not just about me anymore. It's about us, about building something stronger than before. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle in my chest. We're not perfect, Mara. We never will be. But I think we can make it work. We just have to be honest with each other, no matter how hard it gets. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and made them sparkle again. I'm ready for that, Noah. I'm ready to try. I know it's not going to be easy, but I want to. I want to rebuild with you. And for the first time in a long while, I truly believed her. I had my doubts, of course. The road ahead would still be rocky. But in that moment, as we sat together, the weight of everything that had happened between us seemed just a little lighter. We didn't need grand gestures. We didn't need promises we couldn't keep. What we needed was simple time, patience, and a commitment to try every day, no matter how hard it got. As the weeks passed, we found ourselves healing, slowly but surely. We rediscovered parts of each other that had been buried, forgotten under the weight of our pain. We laughed together again, like we used to. We shared more than just the silence. We shared our thoughts, our hopes, our fears. And in those quiet moments, I realized something. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting it, learning from it, and using it to build something stronger, something more resilient. Mara and I were never going to be the same as we once were. But that didn't mean we couldn't be something better. One evening, about 6 months later, we sat on the porch, watching the sun set. The world was quiet, and everything felt right. I turned to Mara, my heart full, and for the first time since everything had gone wrong, I could honestly say I wasn't afraid of what the future held. I didn't know where we'd be a year from now, or 5 years, but I knew that we were in this together. And that was enough. We're going to be okay, aren't we? I asked her, my voice filled with a quiet certainty I hadn't had in months. She smiled softly, her hand slipping into mine, and she nodded. Yeah, we're going to be okay. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the hardest parts of life, the pain, the mistakes, the fear, are the ones that lead you to the most unexpected but beautiful beginnings. We weren't perfect, but we were real, and that was all I could ask for.